Anyway, okay, so there was actually a lot of different issues that came up today. There's not one strong theme until actually I started to think about what everyone was saying. And so today I'm going to cover changing your mindset around stopping drinking and a bit about what goes on in your head, because that does then lead on to learning to live with cravings and discomfort. Then that does lead on to consent and kindness. And then that does talk about, we can move that on to some discussion around moderation and how that engages in the group, because it's a constant discussion. And so let me take you through some things. So changing your mindset to stop drinking. And we talk about this a lot because, of course, every time you lapse, we all sit and we panic and we berate ourselves and we say, I don't understand why I can't do it. I know this isn't really good for me. I don't understand why I can't get to grips with this. I'm not a stupid person. I've got a job. I've got, a degree, or I run things and I do things every day. I can bloody well drive a car. Why can't I deal with some of these everyday things, such as changing drinking, when I know it's not very good for me? And one of the things I would say to you really early is that it's very hardwired in us. It's hardwired, not just, and I'll explain what I mean by hardwired, I think. It's actually, drinking alcohol is a really big part of our cultural tradition, and never underestimate how much thousands of years of drinking alcohol seeps literally into the psyche of who we are as people. And that is a very, very strong bond and a strong tie that means that actually a lot of our society is organised around the way that alcohol works. Equally, it's actually geared around the way men want the world to work as well, and that probably involves a lot of alcohol, which is probably why we have some of these, the gender gap in terms of alcohol consumption between men and women is equalising as all other things around equality equal. But why do I say that? Well, because I think changing your drinking is very different to other things. It's very different to learning a new skill, and it's very different to maybe stopping yourself even smoking, because we've had such a long cultural tradition. Smoking is actually quite new, and the damage was noticed quite quickly, and it's quite obvious, and so that created a whole different set of social norms around smoking. But alcohol is very different. It's a socially accepted drug that we that as a society we accept, and as a cold northern hemisphere type of country we take great delight in and we enjoy. And it means that even from a very early age, I remember people drinking, getting drunk. My dad was a drinker, sitting in the car park with crisps and a bottle of pop while my dad was in the bar. It was part of his social life and his social circle. All of those things, all of those memories, all of those experiences, all of the ways society talks about alcohol shapes who we are. It shapes our brains. It shapes how we're networked and how our memories shape who we are. And so to begin to unpick that is quite difficult. It also shapes, therefore, how we deal with certain situations. So, for example, there's some received wisdom that says that once you start drinking, your emotional maturity or your emotional development begins to slow down, because you begin to deal with all of your emotions through the vehicle of alcohol. Oh, I'm upset. Oh, you should drink. Oh, I'm happy. Oh, get out the champagne. Oh, I'm angry. I'm disgruntled. I'm anything. As a society, alcohol is always the answer. And the minute you start using alcohol as the answer, you don't deal with the problem. You block it out using alcohol. So since some of us were about 14, 15, every emotional experience we've dealt with has been affected and changed by the alcohol we've had. But also our brain is hardwired to say, oh, here's an emotional situation, a drink is what we do. Here, you're stressed, a drink is what we do. So there is some fucking mental hardwiring that's gone on in our brain. And the reason why I talk about that is because it's not just about mindset. It's not just about being able to sit down one day and say, oh, that's okay, but I've decided not to drink because obviously it's bad for me, and so I'd be really foolish to put that in my mouth and do something that's bad for me. It's not as easy as that, because our social pressures are around us, and there's years and years and generations of drinking that shaped who we are. So it's not just about saying, here we are, here's a mindset, I'll stick on some hypnotherapy, it will all be perfect. Because actually we need to unpick hardwiring. And as I've always said, even after 4 years, there will still now be times, it would be occasions, it would be emotions, it would be different things, but immediately my brain goes, oh, alcohol will do this. And the fact that I'm having a lot of drinking dreams at the minute when I'm quite stressed trying to do stuff with club soda is probably a sign that alcohol is still that place that my mind goes to, because it says, oh, when you had this problem before, you always solved it through this. When you had this problem before, you solved it through that. So don't underestimate how hardwired we are for alcohol being the answer to everything. So how do we begin to deal with this? Well, there's always this received wisdom that takes 21 days to change a habit. Well, that might be okay if it's a difference between flossing your teeth and not flossing your teeth. It might be about whether you might have low-fat spread on your bread in the morning or not. But apart from that, actually 21 days is not a long time to unpick actually a generational hardwiring of our brains around alcohol. So first of all, we should never expect quick results on all of this stuff. You need to unpick it slowly, bit by bit, understand the emotions that underpin what you do, understand your own behaviour, and understand the external stimuli that are constantly and relentlessly asking you to do something different to what you're trying to do. And don't forget, all of that external stimuli also feeds into that wonderful internal saboteur that goes, yeah, look, it's something that everybody does. It's what we've done for centuries. You've always got on better when you celebrated with alcohol. So it's also feeding and nurturing your inner saboteur that doesn't want you to feel discomfort. So we'll come back to discomfort in a minute, but let me just say now that unpicking your drinking habits is not something that will stop after 6 months or 1 year or even 4 years. It will probably sneak up on you by surprise even when you don't expect it after 10, after 15 years, because that there will always be a situation which just totally throws a curveball. It's how you deal with it that is then the important thing, and the way you deal with it is not giving in to that hardwiring, that innate pressure, the first time that you feel a bit of stress and your neuron goes straight to the bit that says, oh, alcohol's the answer. It's how you begin to deal with that bit of signalling that is really important. And that takes more than 21 days to unpick, because it's all sorts of situations that can create a curveball. So that's why I always say that changing your drinking is a marathon and not a sprint, and that there's lots of learning for you to do. You need to learn to be a non-drinker when you're happy. You need to learn to be a non-drinker when you're sad. You need to learn to be a non-drinker when you're tired. You need to learn to be a non-drinker when you're lonely. You need to learn to be a non-drinker when you're celebrating, and so on and so on and so on. So you're not learning just one thing, you're learning many things. And yes, Charlotte, you're absolutely right. You're also learning to be different. You're also learning to stand outside the social norm. And that actually takes a lot of gumption and quite a rebellious nature to do. So it's no wonder this is so hard. And because it's hard, people don't often try it. And you're all amazing for even trying it in the beginning. Because if it was that easy, we would all do it. So that's the first thing. And Sophie, I know when I say it's hard, your reaction is to, oh, well, sod it then, hit the fuck it button and give up. Well, not really, because each time, when I say it's hard, I'm not saying it will continually grind you down and every day you will feel like the worst person in the world and it'd be hard and difficult. It just means that there will be ebbs and flows in how easy or how hard it is. You will learn new wonderful things about yourself along the way, and you will learn lots of things that will build your resilience, not just around drinking, but around mental health and emotion and your ability to deal with all sorts of different situations, your ability to cope with life. You will gain many amazing things as well, but it is a trade-off, and there is some hard things that you will need to deal with. So you're unpicking some very big social, historical, and child-developed hardwiring that it will take time. You need to learn to be you in new and multiple situations where alcohol would have always been present. And it's a continual journey. But everything's a continual journey. You don't just do one class of yoga and then suddenly become supple and amazing and can do a headstand, do you? It's a journey. It's a progression of your skills and your ability. You don't suddenly become able to read or write. You learnt, you developed, you grew. And so you need to see this as a progressive journey, but you also need to make sure you capture the highs along with the lows. And there are lots of highs in all of this. There are the highs of learning that you can be just as witty and funny without alcohol. Obviously I am. It took a little while, but I do still think I'm can be funny sometimes. I also feel it changes your self-confidence and your self-esteem, because it gets rid of that guilt you feel from hangovers. And if you're somebody who's got no off switch, or you're somebody who drinks too much, like we all did, the absolutely crippling self-esteem that you have from not being able to control your intake of alcohol, wow, I don't want that back for 1 minute. So you lose some shit as well that you don't really want. So all of that's got to be taken as a package. All of that is how you begin to move that mindset. And I'm just thanks, Nadia. I thought of you when I thought of that yoga reference, that picture of you on your Facebook. So like I said, don't ever expect quick fixes on this. Don't ever expect the journey to go smooth, but expect to learn a lot, expect it to help you build your resilience. You are building a new set of skills. It's a set of exercises, and the more you do it, the more you will get easier at it. And it gets easier. And that brings me on to discomfort, because somebody also talked earlier about learning to deal with cravings, and I call that discomfort. A craving is if you were physically addicted and you couldn't be without alcohol and you had to have that or you think you would die. And the truth is the craving that we most often have is because we're used to having a drink at this time of day, and now we can't have that drink at this time of day. And so we have this moment of discomfort because we can't do something that we want to do. And in this day and age, we're very used to doing what we want when we want. For example, just imagine if you didn't have Wi-Fi right now, you'd all be going a little bit mental. You'd all be having a moment of discomfort. You'd all, pad around your house going, well, I'm bored now. What else should I do? And you'll be surrounded by things that you can, of course, do. But then none of them are as quick as going on Facebook or online. And they will take effort and you'd have to think about them. Well, that's exactly what happens with alcohol. You go, well, I normally have a drink now and I'm a bit stressed, or I'm a bit angry, or I'm a bit down, or I'm a bit happy, and I would normally have a drink now and I can't have it. And that drink used to be really quick because you could get it out the fridge. I'm sure some of you could uncork a bottle in milliseconds. You could probably, take the top off the beer bottle with your teeth. You could get into that quicker than, a small child could into a packet of sweets. It was a real quick fix, and anything else that you want to replace that with is not going to be as quick a fix. But you're only going to change a habit if you begin to learn new skills and you put new things in its place. So remember when I tell you that what you really need to have at hand is a load of quick fixes, things that you can really do really quickly. An alternative drink. You might want to go for a quick walk around the block. You might want to do 10 press-ups. There'll be a whole host of things that you can do that are quick fixes that mean that you can deal with that immediate discomfort. You can drink a pint of water. Often you want a drink of alcohol because you're thirsty. I want a chocolate biscuit because I'm thirsty. So, swigging that pint of water and really distracting yourself for 20 minutes is a really good thing to do. So find those quick fixes. It could be doing some online yoga. It could be doing a headstand, Nadia. It could be, Sophie, you could write a joke in 20 minutes. There's a real good setup and punch there. There are many, many things that you can do, but you need to begin to build your own list, because what works for Sophie doesn't work for me, doesn't work for Nadia, and so on. So we need to start building our own list of things to deal with discomfort. But once you recognise it's discomfort, that really it's you being a petulant child and not being able to have what you want when you want it, and I'm really terrible at this. Once you realise that, you realise it isn't going to kill you. You can ride this. And I know Janet and others and Jacqueline and who else, somebody else said earlier that how do you deal with that discomfort? That discomfort does lessen the more you go on, because you've learned that it's discomfort. You've learned that all you're doing is looking for a drink when you normally had a drink. And over time, you'll begin to replace that with different habits. And so it becomes easier. And your mind no longer goes to a drink, first of all. So when I'm stressed, my mind doesn't go to a drink immediately anymore. Unfortunately, at the minute, it's going towards food items and it's not going anywhere near exercise. And really, I need to tip those round slightly. I haven't quite worked out how to do that yesterday, but I did go out and deliver some leaflets yesterday for elections, so I'm feeling dead chuffed with myself. I replaced it with making tea. In that process of making a really lovely pot of tea, I changed that process early on with also reading a chapter from a self-help book to keep myself motivated. But you need to find those things that work for you. And discomfort is not cravings. We just think it's cravings because that's what we're told we should have when we're not having something, and it's not going to kill you. And so if I just recap about changing your mindset, every time you get that feeling that you want to have a drink, you used to have a drink at this point, I don't know why I can't have a drink, I don't know why I can't have a drink, why can't I have a drink? Bang, bang, bang. You need to understand that you're in the process of rewiring your brain. You need to find something different to do instead, something that stimulates you as well. That it won't be alcohol, and it might not work as quickly as alcohol did, but you're beginning to build new things to make a resilient you for the future. And that over time, that will get easier. Well, maybe Sophie, we need to just, have some, I don't want to have a competition on Fitbit. I really don't walk enough. But, we do need to replace that habit, and we do need to help lessen that discomfort for ourselves over time. So then that takes me on to something else that I think is really important. Somebody talked about how we treat ourselves with kindness. And I also want to extend that to how we treat ourselves with consent, which is also a really interesting thing to do. Now, we're doing something difficult, and I think we need to not only respect ourselves for doing something difficult, but make sure that people understand that this is difficult for us. And so you do need to treat yourself kindly. So if you've fallen off the wagon and you've woken up with a hangover, you are going to feel shame, and you're going to feel regret, and maybe a little bit of humiliation. I mean, I felt those all of the time, and a complete misunderstanding of how I could carry on doing this to myself when I think I'm like dead clever, and why would I keep doing this? And I did that for 10, 15 years, and it progressively got worse and worse and worse. So if you find, like some of you have, that this weekend hasn't been your best weekend and you ended up drinking when you had not intended to, the first thing you need to do is to treat yourself with kindness, because you've done something hard, you've done something that other people dare not try, and you're on a journey over time, and you've got 10, 15, 20, 30 days, 18 months behind you where you didn't drink. And you've learned lots through those. So instead of treating yourself and beating yourself up through guilt, treat yourself well and say, well, what have I learned? What do I think about this? What are the actions I want to take forward? But also, how am I going to look after myself today? How am I going to feed myself nice things and good things? How am I going to reward myself? You are allowed to reward your failure, as long as it's not with alcohol, okay? Because that's called hitting the fuck it button, and then that's no good at all. And you do need to reward yourself, because if we go back to the hardwiring, alcohol is a really big part of our reward structure. Not only because we're taught to reward ourselves with alcohol all the time, but because when you drink alcohol, it hits the reward and pleasure centres in your brain. So in two ways, it's a really big part of our reward structure. So you need to be able to reward yourself with lots of really comforting things that are about being kind to you. Whether you've succeeded or whether things haven't gone quite to plan, you need to treat yourself well and find some things for you to do that nurture you and make you feel good. And just checking some things here. Anyway, I'm going to come back to that in a moment, Sophie. So if you're going to treat yourself with kindness, you need to write down the things that are kind for you. So, you know, what is it you like? What is it you don't like? It's also good to know that. What would you enjoy? Is there some new joys you need to find? You probably do. You probably need to go. I never realised, right, until I gave up drinking, I really like Charlie Chaplin films. I really like silent movies. And I only ever discovered that because I wanted to treat myself to something when I gave up drinking. I went along to some Charlie Chaplin films that were with a live score. I thought, oh, this is interesting. Somebody playing live music to a black and white non-talky film. Silent movie, that's the word, isn't it? I'll go along because I need to do something. I'm not drinking, I need to do something. And I went and I blew my mind, absolutely blew my mind. And I realised that actually it's a wonderful treat because you don't get to go to a silent movie in a cinema very often. You have to look out for them and find them. And then some of them might not be as interesting as others. And then some of them have like a whole orchestra. And what a treat, for a tenner. God, less than a bottle of wine in a pub, you can go and watch something amazing. So you might need to find some new joys, and you can have joy in finding out what your new joys are. You can go to them and go, well, that was shit, I'm never doing that again. But now I know, cross that off my list, I'm going to go and try something else. So do it. And in fact, I used to go and watch stand-up comedy lots and lots and lots. And since giving up drinking, I've gone into stand-up less and less and less because I can now concentrate on more than something that's 20 minutes long. How amazing is that? So start to think of your journey of finding new joys as a real big part of treating yourself kindly and bringing new habits. Which then brings me to treating yourself with consent. Because we talk about avoiding difficult situations when you're trying to change your drinking. It might be places, it might be people. Oh, I've got a really unhappy face then. Who gave me an unhappy face? It might be, anyway, treating yourself with consent. It might be, you might want to avoid certain people. You may not want to do certain things. You may not want to go to a party because you're not drinking. You may want to go to the party in the morning, but by the time you get to the evening, you may not want to go to that party. And you know what? Guess what? You're allowed not to go. This is your life, and you make the decisions for you, and you're allowed to change your mind. And you should not go to anything because you feel you have to, or you feel you should do through guilt. And during this part of your journey, I think that's really important because everything about drinking has been because you feel you have to, because you feel under pressure to, because you feel it's expected of you, because it is your partner drinks, all of those sort of things. So you've spent a whole life of feeling guilty, feeling upset with yourself, treating yourself harshly for your drinking. Now's the time to give yourself a bit of space. And if in the morning you want to go to a party and if by the evening you don't want to go, then don't go. And say, actually, for me right now, this wouldn't be the best thing for me to do. For me right now, I don't want to go to a party. I want to put on a pair of socks and a woolly jumper and sit in front of a movie. That's okay too. You are allowed to make decisions that you think are right for you in the here and now. And I think that's really important because when we're put under pressure by our partners or people close to us to do something, we often then end up not enjoying what we're doing because we felt under pressure to do it. But B, we end up drinking because we felt under pressure to go, we're not really enjoying ourselves, and so we go unprepared and we go with a negative mindset and we're more likely not to achieve our goal. So instead of going to things you don't want to do, think about how you might explain to people why you don't want to come to something. So for example, you know, if friends are starting to put you under pressure to drink and you don't want to drink, you know, say to them very clearly, look, I have made a decision for me, not for you, for me, that I don't want to drink today because it's important to me not to drink today and I'm doing this for me. I would like it if you could not put me under pressure because this is something I'm doing for myself. Do ask your friends to support you in your journey. Do explain to them the behaviour that you would like from them. But this is about you and nobody else has any right to tell you what to put inside your body. You know, Ugh. So start standing up for yourself. Start saying no. If you are my friends, then you will support me in this thing I want to do. I'm not asking you to do it. And you might want to reassure them and put yourself in their shoes and give them the reassurance they need. But if you don't want to go and do something, if you don't want to have a drink, then you should not do it. You might want to work out how you tell people. You might want to practice that in a mirror. You might want to find kind and lovely ways to do that so that you don't upset people that love you. But actually, if you give people a bit more explanation, you know, I am not coming to your 40th birthday this evening. It's very different to, do you mind if I don't come to your 40th birthday this evening? As you know, I'm trying to change my drinking patterns, and it would really matter to me a lot as a friend if I could not come to this party but find a way to celebrate with you that's different instead. So find your way around these things. Find the thing that you would like to do to celebrate with a friend a significant milestone that suits you in the here and now and will suit them. But just because they've got a party doesn't mean you have to definitely go, because it's right for them, but it's not right for you. And that's not treating yourself with kindness, and it's not treating yourself with consent. So let me just bring that on to something else. So kindness, oh yes. So kindness requires honesty about what we're able to give to others and what we want to give others, as well as actually giving. So you can, you know, give to people in different ways. Just you need to be able to be kind to yourself too. So let me bring that on to the final point then, which is this battle between moderation and alcohol free. And I'm going to say it really clearly here. I will tell you something that's really interesting about the group, right? There isn't a single person, apart from maybe Richard, and then I'm even not sure about Richard, who says that they've given up forever. There is not one single one of you, just so you know this. And I think that's fascinating, because ultimately, I think saying forever feels like a long time and none of us want to do it. I also think the idea of forever still got some tinges of what alcoholics say, and some of us are not ready to say forever because that brings in a disease model theory around alcohol instead of there being a big twat model of alcohol, which I subscribe to. So all of you here are actually moderators in some way, because you've never drawn that definitive line. Jules has given up forever. I think I've given up forever as well. But most of you, the group is a bit like this. People who are still contemplating and not quite managed it yet. And there are lots of you who come on the site who are still drinking and still haven't managed to get the action yet. And then there are those of you like Jules and others who've said, right, that's it forever. And in between is a whole spectrum of people. And some people who are living an alcohol-free lifestyle now and intend to for the foreseeable. And some people who were intending that, and then they had some drinks, and so they've tried to moderate, and they've gone back again, and then they've gone back to going alcohol-free for a month, and then they've come back again. And you know what? The whole reason why I set up Club Soda, so that we weren't setting your goal for you, is because I completely recognise that. Because for 15 years, I tried to moderate, take time off, take a month off, drink less when I went out, only drink with food, moderate, take time off again. This journey to change your drinking is not linear, my friends, but there isn't much language that helps us describe it. So that's one thing to say, that we lack language. So if you're moderating, that's also a weird word. And alcohol-free is a weird word, but it's better than teetotal. And then there isn't a really good word for keep trying and then take one step back a bit and then try again and do another sprint and then come back a bit, and then do another year and then fall back a bit. There's no words for that either. Okay, so for a start, just throw all of that language away and decide what your goal is for you. And every time you come onto the site and you want to share something with somebody, feel free to articulate what your goal is at the start of the conversation. My goal today is, It doesn't matter if your goal is different tomorrow or the day after. This is about you treating yourself with consent, and it's about you telling people what you need from them. Today, at the moment, I'm still in the phase when I'm going to try and moderate. Can you help me do A, B, and C? And next week, if you want to say, sod it, that wasn't working, I want to get alcohol free, absolutely fine as well. What is always really annoying, because we're using Facebook, is that when people hit a milestone, which tends to be people saying I've done a month alcohol free or 6 days alcohol free, we all pile in and go, well done, and all those posts sail up to the top of the feed. It's harder for people to hit milestones when they are moderating, so they put them up less, because saying that you drank less than you normally do doesn't seem so heroic somehow, because we don't have the language for it, and so your posts don't come up so high. So first of all, I want to say to you all, it's your goal. It's up to you to articulate who you are on the moment that you come onto the site. And if you're not sure that people are respecting your goal, then feel free to restate it and feel free to tell people what it is that you want and need from them right now. What I will say to people who are moderating is that it's really easy to say you're going alcohol free, because that's very clear. It's a nothing. Whereas one person's moderating goal is different to another person's moderating goal. So we're dealing with a whole complexity of goals. So feel free to tell us what your goal is and what your aim is and state it so that we can then celebrate it as well. And one day there may be an easier way to go around this. But also, I want to be clear with you that if you think you're moderating because you basically fell off the wagon and you're not sure what to do next, you're allowed to say that too. Oh, well, I've tried moderating and it didn't quite work, and so maybe I'll try something else and that might not work. You have to keep trying. This is like a one-person science experiment, and the only subject is you, and you're conducting that experiment on yourself. And we're here to help. We're the laboratory. We help create some of the conditions and give you some of the information that you need. But this is all about you, and it's your journey. And just because some people are on their honeymoon high from going dry, it doesn't mean it stays that way either. And so we will all have testing times. And so I wanted to say that out front. But also, for those of you who are moderating, you still have to plan your alcohol-free days, and those are sometimes going to be easier than planning your drinking days. And actually getting the group to help you plan your drinking days is really important, because you will start to find exceptions left, right and centre. I will not drink at home. Oh, unless it's Christmas, and unless so-and-so comes round, and unless it's a day that my mum comes round, and unless it's Sunday lunch. It will go out the window. So it's really hard to keep to the rules you set yourself, but you need to set yourself some really tough rules, and you need to articulate them and write them down and say them out loud to the group. So do that. And Sophie, if that's your fear, then share that fear, but share your plan. Let us celebrate when you've done well, and let's see how it's going for you. Tell us how you're feeling each step of the way. It will be fascinating, because that frightens me. Moderating frightens me. Totally. I just fear about what I will lose. And in some ways, that might not be a good position to be in either. So all in all, this mixed bag of things, of people, of goals that we've got in the group should allow us to share lots of a range of different stories and emotions and tools and tactics and learning. This is a place where you share your personal learning experiment in you and tell us about it. But if you're continually coy and feel you can't share something, then nobody learns. So we all need to learn. So anyway, okay. Like I said, moderating is not for me now. I keep saying I'm going to take it up when I'm 70 again. Although I keep moving that milestone. I think, I might wait till I'm 80 because I'm planning to live that long, and so on. So who knows? But don't ever feel backward in coming forward, because being able to hold yourself accountable to the group, being able to share what your goal is today, being able to share what your tactics are not only good for you, but they're good for everybody else. And I want to learn them. I want to know, because what worked for me doesn't work for everyone else. I started a relationship at the start of giving up drinking with somebody who also gave up drinking with me. That is such a unique set of circumstances that I cannot even begin to work out how I would advise anyone else to do the same. But what I did learn is that changing your environment is a really good part of changing your mindset. So there we are. Okay, I'm going to stop it there. We bounced around a bit today, but I think there's some lessons that I'd like to share with you today. One is that this is a long journey. It's not an easy journey. You are changing not only the hardwiring that's developed over years in you, but that hardwiring has been developed through huge numbers of traditions that we have in society. So it is hard stuff. So treat yourself with kindness, and treat yourself with respect, and treat yourself with consent. Your goal today doesn't have to be the same as your goal tomorrow. You're on an evolutionary journey, and this is your experiment in you. So do share with the group whatever that goal is. And no one's allowed to be mean to you because I'm in charge. I think that's basically it. I think Jills and Joe and Jules and Richard and others are also partly in charge. But you know, no one's allowed to be mean to you if your goal is slightly different. We're allowed to say that your goal wouldn't be possible for us and to share some stories about it, but it's your goal, and that's the important thing. So learn to be kind with yourself and treat yourself with consent. Learn that you're having discomfort, not cravings, and they will go over time when you learn new tactics and tools to deal with them. And finally, just carry on being lovely, because you're all supporting each other. So the fact that sometimes you may feel that you're being judged for having a different goal doesn't ring true with actually what really happens in the group. So treat others as you would like to be treated yourself, as always. And if any of you need some extra help now over the next 5 weeks, then we start next Sunday this special coaching course over Christmas, and that can work for you if you're a moderator as well. But certainly it's about avoiding all of those boozy situations and finding new traditions for yourself. And you get special access to me, so I will help you, like I did Susie last year actually, through your Christmas season by being on call. And that's it. I'm going to stop talking. I've got a blocked here, and so it's been I'm hearing myself in a really weird way today. So I'm going to go now, and